It'll be an opportunity. It is about opportunities and threats to American philanthropy to India. Our moderator is Ramesh Srinivasan, a senior partner at McKinsey. We have Shruti Deorah, who's the Executive Director of India Energy and Climate Center. We have Jay Sehgal, who is the Executive Vice President of SM Sehgal Foundation. We have Yamini Misra, Country Director of MacArthur Foundation. Please come up on stage. Welcome, panelists.
Okay, should we get started? Firstly, the room is hot, which, as I was telling Shobha, is a good sign. And lovely to see the group of people here, lots of known faces, lots of new faces. Thank you to both in Diaspora as well as IPA to bring such an amazing group together. So let's give them a big hand to all the organizers. We also have a fantastic panel. As we were having a conversation to prepare for this event, each of the people here, I felt, bring a sense of purpose, have a point of view, and I loved even our preparatory call. So I'm hoping we can replicate that in this conversation. We are missing Deepak Raj, and Deepak has been an incredible inspiration, visionary, and somebody we all hold dearly. So he is very much in our mind as we have this conversation. Some of us will try to channelize our inner Deepak as we have this conversation. But we thought let's still keep this panel and bring out the richness in the conversation. I actually thought, for those of you who don't know me, Ramesh Srinivasan is my name, senior partner with McKinsey. I've been in a couple of forums before. My own purpose is to bring hope, a smile, a sense of possibility in a world that is so full of demoralization and challenges. I see myself as a bridge builder, especially between US and India, but also in the world more broadly. So that's what gives me joy, gives me purpose. And the reason I said yes to this conversation today is really in that spirit. How can we enhance philanthropy, exchange of ideas, and contributions between US and India in a way that fits with the agendas of both these countries, but also individuals, the in diaspora, but also the Indian diaspora, but also beyond that in India to have social impact in India. So I actually thought given today's Gandhi Jayanti, I thought we'll start with the spirit of be the change you want to see in the world, which is, by the way, one of the ideas that I've brought out in a book that I co-authored recently called The Journey of Leadership. So I thought I'll start with each of you, and maybe I'll start with you, Yamini, and then go across the panel. Tell us a little bit about who you are, but frame that in the context of what's the change you want to see in the world, and how do you as a leader want to bring about that change?
That's rather profound, I must say. I must also say that I'm very happy to be here. I mean, when I got this invite, I thought yet another meeting, but clearly the energy levels in the room are very promising. So I live in India and I'm coming from there. And it's really nice to see that we are beginning a conversation by remembering Gandhi, because in large parts of India, it's become kind of okay to vilify Gandhi in very problematic ways. So maybe the rest of the subcontinent will have an opportunity to rethink when they see our diaspora community holding on to Gandhi with so much love. So in terms of my personal thing, I think much to be said, but maybe I'll just talk about one particular thing where I thought I tried to live by the values that I preach. So I have worked on gender equality all my life, and I'm a feminist, and I really believe in equal sharing of work within and outside the households, etc. So 8 years ago, when we moved to UK, it was my dream job that I was pursuing, and my husband left his job and he came with me. And it took several years for him to settle down because he had to requalify as a solicitor and barrister, etc. But I think the boys saw something very important. They saw that gender roles can be reversed, that it's mama who's the breadwinner and papa who's staying at home and looking after us. But more importantly, I think what they saw was that it's okay for the men's career also to take a back seat sometimes and the women's career to be prioritized, which is something I think is so unusual in today's time. So I think no matter how much I might have It was a difficult period, but I thought this was a good thing that came out of it. So I think no matter how much theory on gender I would have taught them later, I think this lived experience of truly reversing gender roles would have taught them something.
Thank you, Yamini. What a beautiful answer. Jay?
Thanks, Ramesh. Is it on? Yeah. Thanks. First of all, looking at me, be the change. I started there. So thank you very much for this wonderful question. And I think in light of Sehgal Foundation, are we okay? Yeah. Okay. In light of the Sehgal Foundation, Dr. Shruti Deorah, who's a renowned agriculture scientist, he follows from very childhood. He spent a lot of time at the footsteps of Gandhiji, and he learned a lot of the principles that Gandhiji has preached in his life. First and foremost, and he said, is the wealth is not yours, but it is to give away to the society. And would keep what you need, but give the rest of it away for the society. And he truly lived by that particular concept, that he has kept what he needed. He always says, how many shirts can you wear and how many houses can you own? So basically, he put when he sold his companies, he put 90% of the proceeds aside to run for this foundation's work. Being a seed scientist, he really practiced the other principle that Gandhiji has always promoted, is go to the village. India's future is in the villages. So keeping that in mind and being a seedsman himself, he decided that he wants to make an impact in the lives of the farming community in India, particularly the very, very poor farmers, which are half-acre, one-acre type of farmers, how they can grow more from the small piece of land and earn more to be able to make a bit better living. As we very well know, when you have a little bit of resources, when you have a financial resources, have a little bit of financial stability, you will spend on other things that are needed, so especially your children and especially their education. So everything starts with that. How do we increase the earning? As we know very well, that in the rural areas, the small piece of land is the only source of income that most of the community is. 60%, we talk about 60% of India's population, one way or the other, works in the field of agriculture. I know that's a lot of different topic than many of you in this room, but we particularly said that our focus is going to be how do we increase income of those small holding farmers. Along with the increase the income, the water as agriculture, along with the agriculture, water is an extremely important aspect because they're two sides of the same coin. So water has to be very much part of the equation for the development of the rural communities. So we put a lot of emphasis on water. We put a lot of emphasis on women empowerment, and of course, in that view, we to work on transforming schools in the rural community.
It started with my work across nonprofit sector, government, academia, but more recently, it took the shape of co-founding a policy impact center at UC Berkeley. It's called the India Energy and Climate Center. So my husband Kashyap, who's somewhere in the room, and I put in our family money to seed the center along with a couple of other friends. And we work very closely with Government of India to advise them on key energy policy choices over the next 25 years. Then there are lots of other kind of causes, I feel strongly about opportunity and excellence in sectors such as education and health and sports and arts, and we try our best to support these organizations with not just resources but our time and networks. And one of them is in the room, Leela Institute, Rukmini Mehta. Please speak with her. And we hope to continue to do that more and more as we go along. Thanks.
Thank you, Shruti. Maybe we'll start with what are the biggest opportunities for social impact in India? Maybe I'll kick us off. At least for my wife and I, we're super focused on education. That's what gives us energy. We got involved with education 22 years ago. I've always felt that's the big unlock. I went to Kendriya Vidyalaya Central School and I got almost a free education, excellent education, free of cost. And my wife was a teacher in a public school in Harlem and got involved with education in India. There are people from Akanksha, there are board members. Sehgal, who is here, is a force of nature. we're involved with Teach for India, we're involved with Circle Foundation, we're involved with People Foundation. So, and then my wife has started her own nonprofit called Problem Solvers Lab. So that's where we are quite invested and we see a huge opportunity. But I'm just curious, from the vantage point that each of you sits, where do you see some of the biggest opportunities for impact? Yamini?
Next time you should start from that side.
Okay, next time we'll go that side.
Yeah, from this side or this side, not the middle.
Can you hear me? Yes. So two things in particular. One, I think India is sitting on a huge demographic dividend, which is something that we must tap into. The numbers are amazing. 65% of our population is below 35.
Right.
And guess what the median age of India is? Take a guess. Yeah, 28.8, 29, unbelievable. So the important thing is how we engage the young people now will really determine India's future. And it's not just about, as you said, health. Education is very important. There's health, there is skills, there is civic engagement and constitutional values. So how do we really engage our young people on these issues will determine India's future. And as we know, the window to intervene is very limited. We still just have a 10-year opportunity, 2025 to 2035, after which the growth will taper off. So that's a big one that I think we need to really think very carefully about, because that will determine India's future. And the other big opportunity that I see is India's very strong fundamentals on AI and tech. We are clearly flexing to be a global power on these issues. There are three areas of concern, though, in my mind. How do we ensure that the tech is being used for public interest? Second, there is still a digital divide. We don't talk about it much enough, but there is still a digital divide. Rural India, 55% of people have access to internet, so the numbers are still huge. And the third thing is there is evidence now to show that tech and AI can exacerbate existing inequalities, whether we're talking about caste or gender, whatever. So how do we really make sure that we use these in ways that do not end up increasing existing inequalities, but closes the gap? So these 2 points.
Thank you. Jay, again, like one or two things.
Yeah, I think there are tremendous opportunities, and I think Yamini has covered that very well. But I think as the climate change, as these challenges happen, there are more and more opportunities will come in the how do we innovate ourselves to be able to apply, especially, again, I go back to what we do in the agriculture. That is going to be a huge impact. Climate change is going to have a tremendous impact on the agriculture, on water, what we do in the rural communities. And that's where I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunities available. And I know there's a lot, Yamini talk about AI. There's so many applications coming into AI. And it is very important that we evaluate what are these applications and how they are going to positively impact the farmers at the grassroots level. And I think those are the huge opportunities coming at the youth. Yamini also talked about youth. A lot of the youth are moving away in India from agriculture, which is leaving, and the men goes out to for labor because they can't make enough subsistence living from the field. So women are left to manage the on-farm work. So, and there the education and empowerment of the women really is going to be a huge opportunity to work with, to empower the rural communities.
Thanks, Jay. Actually, I'm also going to talk about climate change, not just because I work in that field, but also because globally, less than 2% of philanthropic funding goes into this existential crisis that we are staring at. And in fact, in India, that number is lower than 1%. Yes. And I would be really keen to talk to the report authors who said 15% of diaspora is thinking about climate, because I would like to meet those people. The thing is that what maybe many people don't know is how vulnerable India is to climate change. So, just due to extreme heat, India stands to lose 5% of GDP annually by 2030. If you think about that, then 7 to 8% GDP growth is not looking that good, is it? And it's basically there is a metric called social cost of carbon, which is the amount of damage 1 ton of carbon emitted anywhere in the world will cause, and India has the highest damage, basically. India stands to face maximum damages due to climate change. So what do we do about it? There is also a huge opportunity, because to become a 30 trillion economy by 2050, India's energy demand is going to grow 4x. However, there is something called what I call the energy SaaS opportunity now, because your energy security, affordability, and sustainability sustainability objectives are actually quite aligned in the first time. India has a unique opportunity in the history to, to basically discover and show the Global South a new model of development based on clean energy. And there are several institutions in the US working on leveraging the US-India connection to work on this topic, not just on climate change mitigation, but also building resilience, agricultural resilience being a huge part of it, extreme heat resilience also. So I think, there are people, not just India Energy and Climate Center, there are other India centers at different US universities. There are other nonprofits who now have India outfits working on this. So I would really encourage people in this room to think about this.
That's a great set. So I heard about the youth of India, and not just education, but also healthcare and skills, and also a mindset of citizenship, gender equality, all of that. How do we shape the youth? I heard something about AI and technology, how to make sure it's equitable and develops in the right way. And then climate change, both in rural India, but also urban India. How do you think about the energy requirements and do that in a way that's thoughtful? So lots of areas where we can have impact. There's a question here, maybe I'll pick that. It frames it as a mistake you've made, but I'll take the positive framing. What's the learning you've had in these opportunity areas? You all have been in the field for a long time. What are learnings, and I'll start, Shruti, from your side. What are learnings you've had or things you've changed in the way you've set up the center, in the way you've thought about climate change, opportunities, learnings you've had over the last 5 years that you've been, or more, that you've been thinking about impact, social impact in India?
Yeah, I think maybe if it's okay, I'll answer two things on
please.
that question. I think as an investor or philanthropist, I would say something that has helped me is to change the framing in my head from impact of my money to service. So basically, really seeing the joy that your grantees can create, what's the ripple effect. But that also, I think, really helps us, or helps me to show up in a way which is more, trusting and more collaborative rather than more evaluative. And I think I have to acknowledge my husband on this. He has, that is what I've learned from him actually, because he's shown up with the trusting this thing for all his investee companies, for example. The other thing, as an operator, what I've learned is that, I think if you are thinking about systems change, then it's really, then one should really think about long-term giving, the patient capital piece of it. Because, upstream work does not happen in a year.
Right.
If you're thinking about institutional building, if you're thinking about policy work, if you're thinking about innovation system, it needs several years of risk-taking and failure. And so I would really, I think, encourage all of us to think about it from what I recently learned this phrase, right to left thinking. Which is you think about a future where you want to go and then think about the big bets, right? And how much time you need and how many risks you want to take, and really not think about just the measurable, projects and deliverables tomorrow or 1 year from now. So.
Thank you, Shruti.
Yeah, I think for us, the biggest learning that we have had in this foundation is the fact that, when we started out, Sehgal Foundation started out 25 years ago, 26 now, and we came up with this huge, as a businessman, how we looked at things as a business people, that we sat in a very air-conditioned room and came up with a huge business plan that we are going to do 4 village to 40 village to 400 to 4,000 in 4 years and this and that. I mean, beautiful plan. I mean, this was great, But the day we walked into the villages with the social scientists, all those plans fell apart because our thinking was completely different than the thinking of the community, what they needed. So we learned very quickly at the very onset that you have your solution. You bringing a lot of ideas, you bringing a lot of thoughts, you bringing a lot of technology, but you have to translate it to the local level. You have to learn what are the needs of the community, how you can meet with the needs of the community, and that creates more success success than going, because the models that you develop, models for especially replication and sustainability models, has to come from the community. And if you take very technical model to the community, there's no electricity, there's no water, there's no, it is useless, you know. So really one has to learn, and then you have to try to really synthesize your technologies that you're taking to be applicable. Again, I am only talking particularly in the light of rural India, because that's what I know the best, and that's what we do. So when we started out, we practically lived in the villages for 1 year to learn to understand what are the needs of the villages, and then we came up with the type of models that we want to. Otherwise, we were getting into health, we were getting into water, we were getting in all kind of other programs in the income enhancement and skilling, but then the focus has to be what the needs of the community were, and that's where we...
Thank you, Jay. By the way, I would say that's true not just in rural India, but even in urban India and the work that Akanksha does. I think we have learned the importance of really connecting with the community, being there, the social workers, the engagement of parents. I think that is so critical in any work. So thank you for bringing that up. Yamini?
So two things. One, I really have learned that development is meaningful only if it includes the most excluded. हाशिए पे रहने वालों की भागीदारी बहुत ज़रूरी होती है. Otherwise, we are talking in bubbles, and I think that's very important. And I learned that from my programming as well. This was taught to me by a Dalit leader who told me that, you know, there's something called discrimination by default. You're not doing anything actively to discriminate, but if you don't explicitly look out for it, you will just end up exacerbating existing forms of discrimination, which I thought meant a lot of sense. The other thing that I learned was that, and Shruti touched on it, is that we are really in this in the long term. When I was on the other side of the table and an American donor gave me some money, this was when I was with an organization called Center for Budget and Governance Accountability, and they asked us to draw up a log frame, and they said, okay, you're going to work on caste discrimination, so are you going to say that at the end of the project period, caste discrimination will be over? And I was like hell it would, you know? I mean, thousands of years of discrimination, right? So just our patient capital, we've heard that word in the morning, but just understanding that we're in this in the long term, and looking out for those people who are getting excluded and ensuring that our programming addresses that, I think, is fundamental.
No, I love the themes of trust-based philanthropy, long-term, really anchoring in the most underprivileged and connecting with the communities that we are focused on. Thank you for that. I wanted to switch to from the opportunities to the threats, but I actually don't like the word threats. I know it's the title of the panel, but I'm going to use the word challenges in order to pursue the kinds of opportunities that you talked about. What are some of the challenges you see of being a philanthropist in the U.S. and trying to serve the communities in India, the kind of work that you're doing? Yamini, I'll start with you.
So two things. One, and I think it's important to say this, colleagues, we are doing pretty well on our GDP fundamentals, although people have challenged the numbers. But we still remain the country with the most number of poor. We still, I mean, depending on how you measure poverty, I believe Nigeria has overtaken us when we measure chronic poverty. But on multidimensional poverty, we still have the world's largest number of poor. We still have the world's largest number of undernourished people. We have fallen on hunger index. So women's labor force participation is very low. So what I'm saying is, I've heard since morning that we are doing so much better on giving, that you all as the Indian diaspora are doing so much better on giving, and that's very heartening. But the gap is still huge. I mean, you are doing better from where you were, and that's the right way to measure it. But if I look at the needs, I think there's still so much more to do, and I think your resources is so valuable in that regard. That's one point. And the other point I forgot. I'll come back to it.
No problem. Jay, what do you see as the biggest challenges?
I think for strengthening the organizations that are doing a tremendous work at the grassroots level, or one of the key things that I think when people are thinking about philanthropy is to set up their own organization. Everybody wants to set up their own organization to do this work. But one must think about, do we need to, earlier we talked about overheads. Amount of effort and amount of overheads that it take to even establish an organization, how much impact that money can bring if you join hands with somebody. So I think our biggest challenge, I think, how we look at it, can we bring a community here in the US, community in India. We, as a Sehgal Foundation, we work with many small nonprofits who are doing fantastic work in the grassroots level to bring them into our center where we can give them training on agriculture, training on water, training on the models that we have. This gives us two opportunities. One opportunity is to teach our projects to them, otherwise also to learn from them, to keep in touch with the grassroots reality as to what the work. So I think that's where I think the biggest challenge I think we face is that how do we bring the donor community, the partner community, bring them together to join hands instead of everybody going their own. I think somebody wrote some information here, silos. Yes, there are a lot of silos are being created and so a lot of duplication is happening. Everybody wants to create their own wheel, which they think is a little bit different, but then it all aligns with the same thing. So we need to think about why do we have another NGO in this overcrowded field already. So
thank you, Jay. Shruti?
Yeah, I think Jay touched upon one of the things I wanted to say, which is that there is almost like too many causes or NGOs chasing some of the money. It is, I have seen some of that, fatigue in some circles. And I would like to just add here that, of course, you choose the causes that you relate to, but also from an NGO perspective, because the founder is typically inspired by the cause or the impact they have to make, one should be really mindful of, is there a business model out there? Like, can you combine philanthropy dollars with some private capital to actually scale up? There's no rule book that says that education or health and only, nonprofits need to be set up. But the other challenge, the controversial thing that I would like to bring up, Ramesh, sorry, is, the Indian government is from a regulatory perspective, not making it easy for certain, for certain sectors in terms of, the FC, if you have heard this term, FCRA. I think most people have. Oh, I see. Okay. So I think, I understand. I think I understand the motivation of that crackdown, but I also feel that it is important to acknowledge that sometimes it's being used as a political tool, and for Indian diaspora sitting here who are pretty influential, I would say, or at least I would hope. I think it's our responsibility to bring it up with the Indian government, because we have the privilege of sitting outside and not fearing that our venture is going to be shut down if we speak up. So I think that's a challenge and we should acknowledge it. And and I think hopefully we can do something about it. At least we should try.
Yeah.
Just
Thank you,
Can I just keeping my future role in IPA in mind, I think I really encourage all of you guys to visit the IPA, look at these fantastic organizations, and join IPA. Because it is where we join hands together and learn from each other, do the work much quicker, and that's a fantastic. Please look up India Philanthropy Alliance. Alex is here. I am here. Many of our board members are here. Talk to us. We will help you if you want to establish a new organization or you want to join one of us to make the impact that you want to make in India. So
thank you. I'm conscious of time, so maybe I'll go with I know each of you. Yeah. We heard some of the opportunities. We went through some of the challenges. As a philanthropist in the U.S. thinking about India, how should they pursue this? What are things that they should avoid? What are like strategies or tactics that you've seen work well? How are you yourself thinking about your strategies and what you're trying to do amidst this environment? Yamini?
Sorry, two quick points, and
Please.
I know we need to wind up. One, I agree with what Shruti said. I think it's important to say that we are giving so much for India, but the morale and the status of the sector in India is pretty low and badgered. began with FCRA cancellations, USAID cutback, all the other bilaterals, European bilaterals are cutting back. So you're seeing the stars in this room, but there are many more stars that have fallen who are not in this room, and I think it's important to acknowledge that. And then just very quick point, I have to share this with you. When Jairam Ramesh used to be the Minister of Rural Development, the head of UNICEF in India said, you know, what we are contributing is peanuts given the size of the budget. And Jairam Ramesh said, no, actually what you're contributing is half a peanut, but it's a golden peanut, it's a golden half. And I think that's what I want to leave all of you with, that your resources are really meaningful and it can be used really strategically, have the capacity to be able to discern where you want to invest, where you don't want to invest, but it is actually a golden half peanut, and it's important for us.
No, thank you, Yamini, for saying that, right? Even when we had the debate in preparation for this call, right? As I think about the Indian, and we are sitting in the consulate, so as I think about the Indian government's approach and what they're trying to do, this idea of sustainable development is best when the ideas that can be scaled are funded internally from within an economy. And, you know, I work quite a bit in Africa as well. I see many, many countries, and they're struggling with some of the geopolitics in the world. So the most sustainable development happens when a country can, and India is really reaching a point where I think the ideas that are proven can be scaled from funding, but that domestic funding. And I think that's consistent with what the government is thinking. Yet, I do think philanthropists from all over the world do have a role to play. I myself, I'm still an Indian citizen, so in that sense, I have a passion for contributing back, and I do feel an obligation as well. And I think the question is, how do we be strategic? What are ideas that we can bring? You know, the ideas that I've learned from Africa, from the U.S., from other parts of the world that I work in. What can I do to bring those ideas, and that those ideas can be quite valuable? And frankly, I think India can play a role in contributing back to philanthropic development around the world. I was in the consulate in New York, actually, with IIT Zanzibar, where we had a fascinating conversation on what India is trying to do to contribute back to skill development, education, technology around the world. So I very much believe in this idea of bridge building, and where is it that we can be smart, and where is it that ideas can... You cannot stop the flow of ideas in the world, and therefore, what can you do to enable that in a way that's consistent with the policies, the regulatory framework, and do that in a thoughtful way is sort of at least how I think about it.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, I think there are two things very quickly I'll mention. One is, of course, the impact. We've got to wrap up. We're getting a message here, which I ignored to read it. But so the impact is extremely important. Impact speaks thousands of words. Impact speaks very loud when you talk to somebody. What type of impact are you making at the, whatever, is it education, is it agriculture, is it water, whatever it is, how you are bringing an impact in the communities. I think that speaks the world from that perspective. Secondly, to take up of what you just mentioned about from within, we demonstrated about 70 schools in Rajasthan which are transformed schools. These are government schools which are run by the community, and they are fully transformed with having water, having toilets for the girls, having digital literacy, everything. We set up this massive sample in one state. Now the state of Rajasthan started looking and recognizing this work, and they say we are going to do 2,000 schools in Rajasthan. So that leads to success. When you have a mass, they lead to success. So I think that's a very important aspect of what you just mentioned.
Shruti, last thought, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I just want to just say +1 to your scale thing. And in fact, I completely agree that especially in India, you need either the government or private sector dollars to scale. However, philanthropy has this catalytic kind of role to play. So we should definitely acknowledge that. In terms of a quick strategy that we have not talked about, the very practical thing is that we are sitting in Silicon Valley where for a lot of people, income can be through capital gains events like stock sale and whatnot. And I think, we are fortunate to be in a country where tax laws actually incentivize philanthropy. So you can make sure that, your dollars are going into causes that you believe in versus the tax. And one thing that, we did as a family a few years ago is to set up a DAF, a donor advised fund, and I think that removes the pressure of time in terms of giving away your money, so you can take your time, do your due diligence, and give. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Firstly, just wanted to give a big hand to everybody on the panel, just the openness. I see, thank you. More and more questions here, so we'll stay with that spirit. We'll, at least I wanted to leave with a spirit of optimism. I'm always a glass half full type of person. I see a huge opportunity, and coming back to where we started, my advice to philanthropy, people said, the current political environment and what's happening with geopolitics, my advice to leaders is really go back to your own purpose, your own why. And the more you're consistent with that and the more you can take a long-term approach, my strong belief is that you can work through these and still have an impact and leave behind something where the world is a better place than it was when you were born. So all the best, and thank you for being here. You can still catch.